Welcome to hour number 3 of the Early Line Live right here on this Tuesday on SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside, and I am Ben Stevens. We will continue to set the stage for Conference Championship Weekend in just a few moments here into hour number 3, all around the National Football League. And then we turn our attention to rivalry week in the NBA. It starts in full tonight on this Tuesday in the association. And it's always rivalry week once we reach conference action in college basketball. This is only late January with John Rothstein, who missed his guy, Donnie Rightside, last week on this Tuesday. Donnie, before we dive into all the hoops that we have on this Tuesday, we asked the public to end out hour number 2, who was the biggest playoff letdown throughout this 2023 NFL postseason? And most of the public, greater than 64% of the public, saying it was the Dallas Cowboys. Who really could fault them? The 2 seed, a touchdown favorite at home against the Green Bay Packers, the youngest ever playoff team in the history of the NFL based on average age of their roster. And they lost outright, and not just outright, losing by 16 points. They got throttled. They got dominated. It was 27-zip under 2 minutes remaining in that opening half. So hard to fault the public that they think Dallas was the biggest disappointment once again.
No, and you're right. You brought up an interesting concept as well, as we always expect the Dallas Cowboys to fall flat on their face in the playoffs. The reason that was different this year is we didn't expect them to fall flat on their face right out of the gate here, Ben, right? At least get to the NFC Championship game and then bow out, or at least win a football game. The fact that you're right, they got smashed in the first game of the playoffs they were in the wild card weekend, that was a big difference here. As we welcome in the radio audience, you're watching and listening live to the Early Line right here with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside, Sirius XM channel 159 on the Sports Grid network, going over the biggest playoff disappointments, which by far the public nailed this one at 64% of the votes coming in here with the Dallas Cowboys. Why? Not because we expected them to win the Super Bowl. We just expected them to be at least competent here, Ben, in the playoffs, and they were incompetent to keep it light here.
So that's the thing, right? The Dallas Cowboys, 13 playoff appearances since last winning the Super Bowl in 1995. They have never reached the NFC Championship game in any of those 13 postseason trips. They have been one and done, bounced in their opening game, 8 of those 13 playoff appearances. But I expected them to be in the divisional round, probably hosting the Detroit Lions, and they couldn't even do that. And it wasn't a last-second field goal from Anders Carlson or Jordan Love orchestrating a final drive in the last 3 minutes of regulation to set up an Aaron Jones touchdown to squeak one out against the Cowboys at the Star. The Packers took it to Dallas. They had no answers defensively to stop Jordan Love, and Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. Same old story for the Dallas Cowboys. That's the only thing I would argue about Dallas being the biggest disappointment. It was disappointing. It was a disastrous end of the year, but 13 times in a row is not a coincidence or not happenstance. It is what happens for the Cowboys. Could the Eagles or the Bills be in that argument? Maybe so, because let's not forget Philadelphia, Donnie. A 10-1 start to this year alongside the 49ers at 5-0. The Birds and the Niners were the last 2 undefeated teams in the National Football League this year. The Eagles, even with their struggles, entered a Week 17 game against the Cardinals that if they won, they would have clinched the division, probably been the 2 seed in the NFC, but they failed to do that. A disastrous end of the year, and then they got whooped 32-9 on the road in Tampa, but still booked as a road favorite. And it's deja vu, it's Groundhog's Day as well for the Buffalo Bills. 4 straight divisional championships, 2 straight years they lose in the divisional round at home. 3 of the last 4 years they have been eliminated by the Chiefs in the postseason. 3 consecutive years getting bounced in the divisional round. Opportunity there once again for the 2 seed in the AFC, Buffalo, at home in Western New York, to only cough up those opportunities for a 4th straight season.
Yeah, if this poll was not who is the biggest playoff disappointment, but who's the biggest disappointment of the regular season, the Eagles and the Miami Dolphins would be neck and neck going down to the wire, because we expected the Miami Dolphins, since early December to win the AFC East. They don't win the AFC East, and they got bounced quickly by the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. The Philadelphia Eagles had a 10-1 record, had a 2-game lead in the NFC for home field advantage, wound up with the 5th seed, and didn't even win their division because how poorly they played down the stretch over over the past 5 to 6 weeks of the NFL season. But since this is the biggest playoff disappointment, and rightfully so, as we're now seeing 65% of the vote coming in on the Dallas Cowboys, that's the right turn here. So I expect, that's what I said, even taking a look at 14% for the Eagles, 14% for the Buffalo Bills. I'm actually surprised it's not higher because it's clear cut. At least the Buffalo Bills came in and said, let's handle our business against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they did. The Miami Dolphins' expectations in the playoffs were probably to lose to Kansas City, and the Philadelphia Eagles just were out of gas in the playoffs, even though they were a favorite here. I didn't see a lot of people jumping on board saying the Eagles win this football game going away without A.J. Brown and a banged-up finger on the throwing hand of Jalen Hurts. It's the Dallas Cowboys in a runaway, and rightfully so.
Only 5.5% of the vote with the Fins, and I think that's correct. Listen, Miami was disappointing against the best teams on its schedule. 1-6 against the spread as an underdog this year, and that one was an outright victory opening weekend of the year against the Chargers on the road in L.A. Of course, the Dolphins would not have ended the year as an underdog against L.A. Not many teams would have, with how disastrous 2023 was for the Bolts. And then by the time the Dolphins reached the postseason, they were so banged up defensively in the incredibly frigid Arrowhead. That was going to be a difficult game for Miami to win, even in sunny South Florida, if Miami was at home, given the defensive injuries. But, Donnie, of course, we talked about Buffalo early on. Do they have a Sean McDermott problem? Both you and I sold that notion. For Philadelphia, already sweeping changes to the coaching staff. We expect Nick Sirianni to remain as the head coach. Brian Johnson, the OC, he is gone. Sean Desai, the acting defensive coordinator for most of the year, was gone. And the acting DC at the end of the year, Matt Patricia, parting ways in Philadelphia as well. What do you, Donnie, as a Birds backer and Eagles fan, expect for Philly in 2024?
I expect a bounce-back season. There's enough talent in that room where they should be a playoff contender once again. Now, granted, on a year-to-year basis, things change, opponents change, teams get better. Washington will probably be better just by de facto next year. Maybe the Giants take a step forward here, and also you're always going to have to contend with the Dallas Cowboys. But let's just say Jalen Hurts gets back to his MVP caliber form. The offense is healthy here. Jason Kelce retires, but Cam Jurgens moves over and plays a decent center position. That's still the semblance of a very good team. You just need the coordinators to back it up. If we're looking at, you say my wish list would be Wink Martindale probably to be the defensive coordinator, but hear me out on this. I don't think Eric Bieniemy is going to be back in Washington as the head coach. He's not a name on the head coaching circuit right now. Bieniemy would be a perfect fit for Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. That'll revive that offense here and move it into the next millennium, because we saw terribleness this past year. That's for sure.
What about Mr. Reich making his return to Philadelphia, looking for a job? All right, more around the NFL postseason up next. Frank Reich.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but he's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Kyle Shanahan said after the game it was the same shoulder that made Deebo Samuel miss 2 games throughout this regular season in 2023.
Last time it was a scapular fracture. He missed a couple weeks. By video, we don't see that. It was the play that he got hit and had a head check. It's more believed to be a muscle injury. X-rays are proven to be negative. They're saying 50-50 right now.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great. Didn't play deep. Brought him off the bench. And now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like they like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled like seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Before we welcome in Craig Mish to preview Conference Championship Sunday around the National Football League, I do want to clarify one thing with my co-host, Donnie Rightside, who looked very confused going to the last commercial break when I asked him about Mr. Reich. That would be Frank Reich, the former offensive coordinator in Philadelphia that was a part of the Super Bowl winning staff under Doug Peterson. So that's all I wanted to say, Donnie.
Yeah, when all I wanted to say was like, hey, how about Mr. Wright coming back to town? Like, man, who's that guy? I like that guy's name.
I got to be on the right side. Yeah. Something Donnie knows very, very
how about Mr.
well.
Reich? Right. It's like, because I like Frank. By the way, I do like Frank Reich a lot. So the fact that you threw that over and probably got no response from me, like, who's that guy? It's pretty good heading to the break. But I heard it as Mr. Reich coming back to Philadelphia. Like, who is that? Yeah.
Imagine my amusement as I'm just staring at the monitor in studio waiting for you to make any sort of movement, even a facial expression, and nothing's happening on. All right, another about Mr. Reich. Yeah. Right side, Mr. Wright. We welcome on Mr. Mish. Craig Mish joins us here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. Craig, any thoughts on the open offensive coordinator position in Philadelphia because Donnie didn't have many?
Well, listen, maybe if we said Mr. Wrong, we would have a better clue on who that would potentially would be. But yeah, no, I think that at this point, everyone is sort of waiting for the Lions season to end. I don't think there's any doubt that Ben Johnson is the most coveted offensive coordinator we've seen maybe in 5 or 10 years, just what he's done for that team. I don't expect him to go to Philadelphia, but you guys know how this is. It's like the tree. It's like a coaching tree, and then the dominoes fall, every cliche in the book. Once that happens and Detroit's out, I think this cycle is going to end very quickly.
So, Craig, as we look at what we have seen in the postseason so far, 14 teams enter, only 4 teams left standing in the chase for a Super Bowl championship to end out the 2023 NFL season. Conference championship weekend is ahead. AFC title game, Chiefs and the Ravens. NFC title game, 49ers and the Lions. What has stood out to you most about how the NFL playoffs have played out so far?
Yeah, the scoring. It seems like finally we got some scoring in these games. I know we've been waiting for it for a long time. And if you think about it, as we've gone through the regular season, and you guys have been previewing, and I have, of course, on my shows too, it's like we preview this one big game or 2 big games, and they very often did not live up to the hype. Like there was no scoring, and it was just a dull game. And then finally, I think this weekend made up for a lot of that. So I don't know if this is a matter of the offense is holding back. What I think, Ben, the conspiracy theorist that I am, is I think before the playoffs started, a conversation was had with the referees. I do. I think you've seen a lot less holding calls. They've been letting them play, and I think the officiating has been much better this time around than it was a year ago. And so, look, the NFL doesn't want these games to be low scoring and a bunch of penalties, and neither of those two things happen. I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah, and also to that point, Craig, at the end of the football game, we're not worried about that one play that wasn't called here. It's like, hey, great. If you don't know the officials are in the football game, it's probably a great football game being played. Let the players decide it, which I do agree, which means we're going to the Charm City this weekend in game number 1 on Sunday afternoon. That's the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. The line up right now, the Baltimore Ravens -3.5 at the FanDuel Sportsbook and a total of 44.5. To me, Craig, I think the Ravens are the better team and moving forward, but I can't fault anybody that goes, now hold on, Donnie. Kansas City getting 3.5 points, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I'll take that. I don't care where the game is or who they're playing at this point. Give us some thoughts here on the Chiefs and the Ravens this Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I see this game very similar to the Chiefs going to Buffalo, where we're going to be talking about this game all week long. We're going to be sharing opinions all week long. And in the end, I think this could very well come down to the last possession of the game. You have, by the way, 2 kickers on both sides that have playoff experience and are both very good. One, without a doubt, is headed to the Hall of Fame, and the other one's pretty good too. And Harrison Butker, Tucker, of course, is who I'm alluding to. And really, when you get down to the games at this time of the year, as far as like wager is concerned and opinions are concerned, I just don't really look at it with anybody having like this super strong intel or opinion. I think what you see is a game, in the end, high score, one team goes down, one team wins, and it could be either of these two teams. Now, with that being said, you're getting a hook, which I don't think you're going to get on Sunday on Sunday morning when this game goes off. I think it's going to be down to 3, just like it was last week. So for me, similar to when you guys asked me about that game last week between Kansas City and Buffalo, I said, don't be afraid to pass. I have the same feeling on this game. I have a stronger opinion on the other game.
I mean, to your point, Craig, it's not like edges are super strong in the NFL at any point of the year, certainly here in the postseason. 10 playoff games we have seen so far this year, only 2 have had the spread come into play, either a favorite covering the number or an underdog winning outright. The Chiefs being one of those teams that won outright a week ago. It was only the Niners and the Packers this weekend, and the Lions and the Rams during Super Wild Card Weekend. Of course, the focus in the AFC Championship game will be on the quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes in his 6th consecutive AFC Championship game. Each and every year as a starter in KC, he has played in an AFC title game. Lamar Jackson, his first AFC title game, this one at home in the Charm City. Craig, how do you compare the quarterbacks entering Sunday's matchup in that AFC title game?
Well, playoff Mahomes is very clearly different than regular season Mahomes, as what we've seen in 2023-24. Lamar Jackson has pretty much been who he's been throughout. I haven't seen much deviation from that. If I had to guess in the end, I think Lamar Jackson is probably going to have the better game. What I was really impressed with last week was just as he was piling up these numbers throughout, you really weren't even thinking about Lamar Jackson during that game, just because, simply put, Houston had such a hard time scoring on offense. I do think the Ravens defense is going to give Mahomes a much bigger battle than the Buffalo Bills defense, who had all those players injured this past week. So, between the two, I do think Lamar has the better game of the two. I really don't care who ends up in the Super Bowl. I think we're going to get a good Super Bowl no matter what. But I personally would like to see Lamar Jackson get over that hump. Whether or not he wins the Super Bowl still remains to be seen. But I think, on the side, it's kind of like, look, Mahomes has been there. He's got 6 AFC championships. And I'm a little bit on Chiefs overload, although they did end up winning last week.
Music to my ears. Lamar Jackson getting over the hump for a Super Bowl championship. But the team he's going to play, that's going to be on the West Coast here. And that's going to be determined by the Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. Favorite here, it's been bouncing back and forth here at the FanDuel Sportsbook, Craig. 6s, 6.5, and now 7s are showing up this morning as a favorite to the San Francisco 49ers. And a total of 50.5. Are the Niners moving forward, or did the Lions pack that offensive punch here to knock those 49ers out?
Yeah, the Lions have just been a vastly different team on the road than they have been at home this season. So I can't back the Lions in this spot. It's been a great year for them. Certainly nobody expected Green Bay to fight San Francisco as hard as they did this past week. But I do think the Lions' storybook season ends in San Francisco. And I also understand that the Niners, generally speaking, once Debo is off the field, don't play nearly as well when he is on the field. But I can't imagine a scenario where Jared Goff is throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in the Bay Area this week. And I know obviously he played out there, but look, the stats really do tell the story with this player. Goff is fantastic in the domes. He's fantastic at home. But once you put him into any adverse situation, the guy tends to go the other way a little bit. Takes nothing away from the season that he has. One of the five most important players in the NFL this season, probably in Goff, but I think the story does end here. And if I saw 6.5 again, maybe I would alt line that even to 6 if possible, but even at 7, I'm going to take the 49ers this week.
So 40 seconds left in this segment. Prior to conference championship weekend, Craig Mish, tell us, who is your prediction for Super Bowl 58?
Ravens win and don't cover. San Francisco wins and covers. 1 seeds again.
And then, what do you like in Super Bowl 50? I guess we'll get there. We'll have you on the show before we get there. Save that, Craig.
Come on.
Yeah, save that. We got plenty of time. We got 2 weeks even after Conference Championship Sunday comes to a close. Listen, maybe. I don't know what that is. Who knows? We're back to do some hardwood handicaps.
That's Mr. Right.
That's Mr.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Kyle Shanahan said after the game it was the same shoulder that made Deebo Samuel miss 2 games throughout this regular season in 2023.
Last time it was a scapular fracture. He missed a couple weeks. By video, we don't see that. It was the play that he got hit and had a head check. It's more believed to be a muscle injury. X-rays are proven to be negative. They're saying 50-50 right now.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great. Didn't play Dave, brought him off the bench. And now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Tuesday on the early line. A bit of breaking news before we handicap the hardwood into Rivals Week in the association. A trade in the NBA on this Tuesday morning. Charlotte, after picking up a win last night in Minnesota, trading away Terry Rozier to the Miami Heat. In return, the Heat send back Kyle Lowry, the veteran, and a protected 2027 first-round pick. Terry Rozier, who spent the first 4 NBA seasons in his career in Boston, the last 5 years in Charlotte, is averaging this season, Donnie, a career-best 23.2 points per game. Now he's making his way to Miami. The Heat looking to change things up, trying to keep that Heat culture running into the postseason once again.
Maybe this is the Heat's version of we couldn't get Damian Lillard, but we still need a guard that can impact us and help us down the stretch and win in the playoffs. So it's a good move for the Miami Heat here. This is one Charlotte has just been spinning its wheels since, the original season that they even came in Charlotte as the Bobcats, as the Hornets, whatever it might be, way back in the 1990s. Sooner or later, the Tobacco Row deserves a legitimate NBA contender. Will they ever get one, Ben? Every year they stink.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. We are seeing some market movement immediately on Miami. There are 3 teams right now in the Eastern Conference at less than $5. The Celtics at plus 140. The Bucks only 60 cents back at 2-1. The Sixers at plus 490. Every other team early this morning was at 17-1 or greater. Miami now that 4th best price by themselves at plus 1,400. Still a large drop-off, over $9 from Philly to Miami, but a big addition for the Heat, who despite dropping 3 games in a row, still 5 games over 500, 24-19, currently in that 6th spot in the Eastern Conference standings. We know Miami is going to be there. The Heat have consistently been there. An NBA Finals appearance in 2 of the last 4 NBA campaigns, into the Eastern Conference Finals 3 of the last 4 years. All right, now to the NBA action. It is Rivals Week around the association. We start with the matchup in Los Angeles. It's the Clippers and the Lakers. We got word yesterday LeBron James will not play tonight out in Los Angeles, dealing with an ankle injury. Because of that, the spread is 9 in favor of the Clips. The over-under, 234.5.
Smash them, Clippers, smash them. And I think we have a guest on here that said basically that this is a Clippers town now for the Los Angeles Lakers. And I agree with that. The better team is the Clippers, but that is a big-time spread here. But you're looking at that anticipated starting lineup tonight for the Lakers without LeBron James. For the Clippers, it's full go. Harden, Mann, George, Leonard, and Plumlee in that lineup today with, of course, Russell Westbrook coming off the bench. It's time to set the standard in L.A. I'll take the Clippers by the margin.
When you look at what LA has done, that being the Clippers in this case, they were 8-10, 2 games below 500 at the end of November. We were all questioning, would it work out with James Harden? Would it make any sense? Could this Clippers team finally be a contender in the Western Conference? From that point, 23 games for the Clips. They have won 19 of them. They are one of the better favored sides in the NBA, 21-13 against the spread. Meanwhile, the Lake Show, as an underdog, 8-9 ATS, only 5 outright victories in those 8 covers. As we keep it moving around the association, a couple of spots in Rivals Week that we will get to, but next we go to the Big Easy. It's the New Orleans Pelicans as a 6.5-point favorite against the Utah Jazz. Not necessarily a rivalry, but maybe New Orleans and Jazz. There we go. Over under 239. What do you like tonight in the Big Easy?
Let's get some points tonight. Anticipated lineups here, certainly for the Pelicans. Always, you're checking in on Zion Williamson. He's due to be in that lineup along with McCollum, Ingram, Jones, and Valanciunas. You take a look at the Utah Jazz, who have played some very good basketball as of late. So if I'm just reading into lines, that is a New Orleans Pelicans line, but I think we get points tonight. Let's head into the 240s for my eyes here, Ben.
There are 10 teams in the association, Donnie, that cover in at least 50 or more than 50% of their games as an underdog. New Orleans is one, but they're laying 6.5 at home tonight against the Utah Jazz. The Jazz are another 19, 15-1 against the spread. They had a 6-game win streak snapped on Thursday by Oklahoma City, but they kept that game tight. They lost by 5 at home. They were a 3.5-point underdog. They have gone over in 4 of their last 5 games, I like what the Jazz are doing. I think Utah keeps this game close tonight in the Big Easy, covering as a 6.5-point underdog. Speaking of the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have the second best win percentage in the Western Conference right now, only a half game behind the Minnesota Timberwolves. OKC at home tonight, a large favorite against the Portland Trailblazers. The Thunder laying 14 in OKC.
Should be able to win and win comfortably here. So you take a look at that 235.5, but I would focus more on Oklahoma City Thunder, not laying and saying, okay, they got to win by 15 points. The Portland Trailblazers don't play very much defense here, maybe looking for a team total for OKC in this game. They should roll in their home court. Full systems go.
Oklahoma City 18-8 against the spread as the favored side. We said this earlier for the Philadelphia 76ers. There are 6 teams in the NBA that have a 65% cover percentage or better as the favored side. Only OKC and Philly are the 2 teams that have been booked as a favorite 14 times or more. I reference that because San Antonio, for instance, has the best cover percentage as a favorite in the NBA, but the Spurs have been a favorite 3 times. They're a perfect 100%, by the way. 3-0 ATS. For the teams we expect to win games, for the teams that we see often as a favorite, Philly is the best at 23-10. OKC not far off at 18-8 against the spread. The Portland Trailblazers, of course, in a rebuilding season without Damian Lillard. The future is Scoot Henderson and others up in the Rose City. You could add Anthony Simons to that conversation. They're just 12-30. 42 games this year, booked as an underdog in 38 of 42, 18-20 against the number. Now we go to Indianapolis. The Pacers, a 4.5-point home dog against the Denver Nuggets. The over-under, 239. Indiana got off to a very hot start this year in terms of that pace. 14 of the first 15 games over. They have calmed down since then. Denver, a 4.5-point road favorite in Indy. What do you expect?
Look, it's going to take a little bit of time here for Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam to get on the same page here, but I'm willing to bet on them tonight. And that number opened up in that 3.5 range. Now we're seeing 4s and 4.5s. I'll take that as a slight underdog on my home court today. Haliburton and Siakam start to gel together in a big matchup against the Nuggets here. I'll go that route. By the way, the Nuggets in a 242 total, say it ain't so, because why? That Pacers pace of play is going to be fun to watch tonight. We'll probably get an over, but I'll go with the dogs on the home court here, getting it back together.
You know that home court advantage at Mile High in the altitude is always good for Denver. As a road favorite this year, though, the Nuggets just 6-12 against the spread. Denver under in 4 of its last 6. When you look at Indiana, 2 games for Pascal Siakam, they have lost both. In the most recent game against Phoenix, they pushed as a 7-point road underdog, but Tyrese Haliburton did not play in that game. No props listed as of yet for anybody that plays in Indianapolis, that being the Pacers side. Can I interest you at all, Donnie? Nikola Jokic is not motivated by others. Nikola Jokic doesn't care about the headlines or the MVP odds or any of that. But Joel Embiid is now the NBA MVP frontrunner and the favorite at plus 130 after Joel Embiid scored 70 last night and had 18 rebounds. Of course, in this game, Nikola Jokic, his points prop is 27.5. Maybe the Joker to record a triple-double, it's plus 165.
Yeah, the Joker to get a triple-double probably makes more sense here because one of those lasting images of Nikola Jokic when they asked him how excited he was to stick around for the parade, basically grabbed his head and couldn't believe he had to stay more than another 3 hours in the United States before getting back to his horses back over in Europe. Look, he doesn't necessarily read those headlines like Joel Embiid does, but he's going to have a good performance tonight. I would take the triple-double at plus 165, but as climbing the ladder on points, I don't think he cares about that.
34 points in Boston on Friday, 12 boards, 9 dimes, 1 assist shy. 42 points in the nation's capital in Washington on Sunday, 12 boards, 2 assists shy of a 42-point triple-double with 8 assists. He has been stacking it up. 35-plus tonight for Nikola Jokic. It's a plus 330 number. Rivals Week continues in Brooklyn as well. The cross-borough battle between the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets at home tonight against the New York Knicks, who have won, by the way, 9 of their last 11 games. The Nets, the home underdog, now a 5-point number. Earlier this morning, it was 4, the over-under 223.
I'm sure a heavy public side here is going to be on the Knicks, which is why I'm going home court advantage for the Brooklyn Nets. And much like the Clippers and the Lakers, I'm hearing reports out of the 5 boroughs up there that this is becoming a Nets town, Ben. Can you confirm that for me with a big victory tonight? Come on.
It is certainly not becoming a Nets town, maybe not even in Brooklyn. The Nets this year as an underdog, 11-14-2 against the spread. Their last 9 games of dog, they've only covered twice, both in outright victory. Meanwhile, the Knicks have won 9 of their last 11 games. In all 9 wins, Tom Thibodeau basketball has reigned supreme. The total has stayed under. In 10 of the last 11 for New York, the total has stayed under. The over-under is 223. Let's see what Tibbs has tonight across the East River into Brooklyn between the Nets and the Knicks. Again, a 5-point spread in favor of New York. We've got some NBA news already on this Tuesday. Again, the breaking news that we shared at the start of this segment, Terry Rozier has been traded by the Charlotte Hornets to the Miami Heat. A new addition for the Heat, now the 4th best price to win the Eastern Conference crown at 14-1. This is only January with John Rothstein up next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Kyle Shanahan said after the game it was the same shoulder that made Deebo Samuel miss 2 games throughout this regular season in 2023.
Last time it was a scapular fracture. He missed a couple weeks. By video, we don't see that. It was the play that he got hit and had a head check. It's more believed to be a muscle injury. X-rays are proven to be negative. They're saying 50-50 right now.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity. Indiana was playing great. Didn't play deep. Brought him off the bench. And now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home. But I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA, and they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled like seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories. But Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night. Only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
There is grit, there is perseverance, and then there is what John Rothstein is pulling off to be here on the early line on this Tuesday on SportsGrid. I am Ben, he is Donnie, and this is only January with John Rothstein. But don't just tell him that, because with some communication errors in the back, John just found out once again about this appearance a few minutes ago. He was downstairs. He was getting that schwitz in early on this Tuesday before a huge night of conference college basketball action. He hustles up the stairs. He tweaks his ankle, and he is still here. Listed as questionable for this evening, but appears on the early line on this Tuesday morning. So, John, we appreciate the time and the grit to be here on this Tuesday.
But, Ben, you left out the most important part. While I was hustling to get up here, I dropped my phone, my most prized possession, in a Stairmaster, and then I went in my pocket, and I said, oh, my God, I don't have any nitroglycerin pills. So I'm doing a poor job this morning at following my own advice.
I mean, if we're not getting scoops, and we're blaming John Shames for that, our lovely producer in the back, that's where the focus goes. I'll throw a guy under the bus if John Rothstein is not getting scoops anymore, but I hope that is not the case. So, John, before we dive in to this Tuesday night of action, let's look back on the two top 25 teams in action on a Monday evening. It was Big Monday, and it was a big second half for North Carolina. Now, the third-ranked team in the country, and they proved why. A perfect 8-0 start for the Tar Heels in ACC play, and a 21-point win over Wake Forest at home inside the Dean Dome last night, 85-64. John, what is the ceiling for this Carolina club?
The ceiling is to win a national championship. And when you think about North Carolina in the last 5 years, North Carolina has not been in position to be vintage North Carolina since 2019 under Roy Williams with that team that had Cam Johnson and Kobe White that was a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament before it wound up losing to Auburn in the Sweet 16. In 2020, there was no tournament. Carolina wouldn't have made it anyway because that was the Cole Anthony season where Carolina greatly underachieved. In 21 and 22, Carolina was an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, didn't make it in 2023. And one interesting thing, Ben, that I wrote about today in my daily column, The Breakfast Buffet, North Carolina has not had a guard who was a first-team All-American since Joseph Forte in 2001. There have been other guards that have been second and third teams All-Americans since then. Ty Lawson, Ray Felton, Rashad McCants, Kendall Marshall, but nobody who's a first-team All-American at guard. R.J. Davis right now has the inside track to earn that label. He's playing like the best guard in the sport.
Looking at the ACC standings here, John, you take a look at the North Carolina Tar Heels, a perfect 8-0, 3 teams in conference play with 2 losses, the Wolfpack Seminoles and the Blue Devils. It looks like from an odds perspective at FanDuel, it's a 2-team race between UNC and also Duke. Can anybody else surprise there and maybe take down the North Carolina Tar Heels in the ACC?
Carolina and Duke, Donnie, have definitely separated themselves from the rest of this conference. Clemson did enough work in the non-conference portion of the schedule to earn an NCAA tournament berth. The wins that Clemson have early, the win over South Carolina, the neutral site triumph over TCU, the road win at Alabama, those all should hold up nicely throughout the rest of the season. But, I feel like we've been talking, guys, ad nauseum the last couple of years about why the ACC has had such limited representation in the NCAA tournament. There have been 30 possible NCAA tournament berths out of the ACC in the last 2 years, only 10 berths from the conference. Now, with that said, the ACC, the last 2 years in the NCAA tournament, is a combined 31-20 and has sent 3 teams to the Final Four. But the volume of this league has not been well represented at a high level in the NCAA tournament. Now, why is that? Virginia has not won an NCAA tournament game since 2019 when it won the national championship. You can't have a strong ACC without a strong Virginia. You can't have a strong ACC without a strong Syracuse, who hasn't been to the NCAA tournament since 2021. And the same year was the last year that Leonard Hamilton and Florida State played in the NCAA tournament. And also Mike Bray no longer being at Notre Dame, and we haven't had a vintage unit out of South Bend, has really hurt the ACC.
But did anybody see a young Quadir Copeland hit a game-winning buzzer beater against Miami inside the Dome on Saturday afternoon? something is happening up there in central New York. As the man in the middle with the towel around his neck might say, red bleeds orange. As we go to the Big 12, the other top 10 team in action last night, the Kansas Jayhawks, who were number 3 in the country last week, but after the upset on the road in Morgantown against West Virginia, KU falls to number 7. But they bounced back with a win inside the Fog last night, 74-69. The Jayhawks do not cover as an 8.5-point home favorite, however. So, John, what did you see out of Kansas last night getting back in the win column?
You know, you always want to learn from a win rather than learn from a loss, especially when you're in a conference as ruthless as the Big 12. But the facts are the facts. The bench for Kansas and the long-term potential of its reserves is still a major, major concern. Kansas did not have a made field goal off the bench last night in its win over Cincinnati. And look, I know that people from the periphery are going to look at the headline being Johnny Furphy had a breakout game, which cements him obviously as Kansas's 5th starter. But things are not going away in terms of Kansas's issues off the bench. And as soon as Bill Self puts one of his reserves in the game, you can taste the difference almost in Kansas's product. It's like going from ice cream to frozen yogurt.
John, as we take a look at some action tonight, as much as I would like to preview this one by saying nobody walks in the Tom Gola Arena against Fran Dumpty and comes away with a victory like the Dayton Flyers are trying to do tonight, we got bigger fish to fry. It's Houston, it's BYU. The battle of the 3-point line tonight. Can BYU pull off this slight upset at home against those Cougars?
They're definitely capable of doing so, Donnie, but it's going to take, a tremendous 3-point effort from BYU, who is known to obviously shoot the 3-ball better in Provo versus away from Provo. Houston, as we know, one of the elite defensive teams in college basketball. Jamal Shedd is playing at an elite level at point guard, 20 assists to just 5 turnovers in his last couple of games. But the Cougars, known to always travel well because of their defense, we could say it's a big game, or we could just tell the truth. This is just another night in the Big 12.
It is another night in the Big 12, total in the low 130s. Of course, the Cougs, that being Houston in the matchup against the Cougars of BYU. Kelvin Sampson's Cougs, the most efficient defense in all of college basketball. 2 losses only for Houston all year, both on the road in Big 12 play. It's the Red River rivalry on the hardwood tonight in Norman, Oklahoma. It is Oklahoma as a 4.5-point favorite against Texas. Listen, if you're Rodney Terry, you just got to expect a couple of horns down gestures tonight. As we look at these two rivals in their final year in the Big 12, John, what's the breakdown for this Tuesday showdown in Norman?
Well, the positive for Texas is it got a much-needed jolt on Saturday against Baylor. The negative is the upcoming schedule. After tonight's game in Norman, Texas is going to play against BYU and Provo. Then it returns home to take on Houston. Then it goes to Fort Worth to take on Jamie Dixon and TCU. That is a murderer's row type of lineup. Now, conversely, I don't think we're paying enough attention to what Porter Moser has built through Portal Combat at Oklahoma. Ben, I'm telling you right now, I think Oklahoma is a dark horse second weekend team in AA tournament. They've got a coach who drills them defensively to put them in the right spots. They've got great burst in the backcourt with Javion McCollum, a very talented transfer from Siena, who, unlike other mid-major transfers who go to power conferences, has had his numbers stay close to the same as they were at the mid-major level. Jalen Moore from Georgia Tech has been a nice, bouncy four-man for them. I think Oklahoma, when it gets into the NCAA tournament, has the ability to win 2 games in the field.
One of my favorite conferences in college basketball by a wide margin, the Big 12 here. 2 teams up top, the Texas Tech Red Raiders with 1 loss, as well as the Kansas State Wildcats also with 1 loss, and a slew of teams with 2 losses here. If we look at the FanDuel odds, Houston at a plus 160 price, followed by Kansas at a plus 420 price. Are those the 2 teams that will rise to the occasion to win the Big 12 when it's all said and done, John?
They would be the people, Donnie, that I would look at, or the teams I would look at in terms of the favorites. But I don't think we have necessarily a great knockout team this year in the Big 12. There isn't a Kansas team like we saw in 2022 win the national championship with Christian Brown and Ochai Agbaji. There isn't a Baylor team like we saw in 2021 with Jared Butler and Davion Mitchell. I think when you look at college basketball right now, there are certain teams that are cut above the rest. Connecticut, to me, has been the most consistent team in the sport. Purdue is Purdue. Zach Edey, Braden Smith, Lance Jones is looking like a nice ancillary piece, the grad transfer from Southern Illinois. And then after that, we have teams kind of coddled together. You could throw Houston. You could throw Kansas. You could throw Tennessee. But a team that I didn't mention that I think has a higher ceiling than all of those teams is Kentucky. And Kentucky got a big boost last Saturday from Zvonimir Ivasic, the foreign prospect who was just cleared by the NCAA. And it's another guy that John Calipari can use at the center position. Now, why is that so important? We've talked for weeks about Kentucky's perimeter. Wagner, Reeves, Shepard, Dillingham. And to me, Antonio Reeves quietly is playing like an All-American. But now all of a sudden, you have a scenario where John Calipari has 4 guys that he can play at the 5 spot in the NCAA tournament. Trey Mitchell, if you want to go small, Big Z, Aaron Bradshaw, or Ugano and Yenso. That's 20 fouls if you go against the new Marbalo, if you go against the Zach Edey, if you go against the Donovan Clingan. And I think the ironic thing about Kentucky, guys, is Justin Edwards, who was projected to be the top prospect on Kentucky's team prior to the season, is the guy who's not averaging in double figures. So to me, UConn and Kentucky have the 2 highest ceilings in college basketball, but Kentucky, with the addition of Zvonimir Ivasic, raising to a different level. It's funny too, Ben, we've heard so much said, so much written about John Calipari and, the offense that he's running. Since Kentucky lost to UNC Wilmington in December. Remember, that game was played without DJ Wagner. The Wildcats are averaging over 91 points per game entering tonight's tilt against South Carolina. But you guys know as well as I do, this is only January.
Kentucky, a 5.5-point road favorite in Columbia tonight against those Gamecocks. The over-under 154.5. Big Z in his first appearance over the weekend against Georgia, only 15 minutes and scored 13 points. Had 5 boards, a couple of dimes, a couple of blocks. He looked the part out there for Coach Cal's Cats. Omaha is somewhere in the middle of America, and it's a Big East showdown tonight. Creighton in an 8.5-point favorite against Xavier. The total, John, 150.5. Now, the Musketeers riding a 3-game win streak. Speaking of 3, Creighton survived against Seton Hall in triple overtime at the Rock on Saturday in Newark. What is your expectation tonight in Omaha?
A shootout. Xavier comes into this game averaging over 87 in its last 3, scored 92 in the win on Friday against Georgetown. And, we have a Creighton team that has very quietly won 4 out of its last 5. The only game is against UConn. Xavier, to me, is an interesting study because Xavier is 10-8 after losing Zach Fremantle and Jerome Hunter for the season. But the metrics are so good for the Musketeers, who had a non-conference schedule that featured both Purdue and Houston. I think 18 wins plus 1 win in the Big East tournament gets Xavier into the NCAA tournament. 10-8 tonight. This could be a swing game for Sean Miller's club, and it's a big one because the next game after this for Xavier at UConn on Sunday.
And this is only January. John, we appreciate it. Best bets on the early line next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Kyle Shanahan said after the game it was the same shoulder that made Deebo Samuel miss 2 games throughout this regular season in 2023.
Last time it was a scapular fracture. He missed a couple weeks. By video, we don't see that. It was the play that he got hit and had a head check. It's more believed to be a muscle injury. X-rays are proven to be negative. They're saying 50-50 right now.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity in Indiana, was playing great, didn't play D, brought him off the bench, and now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home, but I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
They were best friends. Like they like Siakam's best friend on the team was Chris Boucher. Chris Boucher's best friend on the team was Pascal Siakam. They're not American, right? So there's different cliques in the NBA. And they were very, very tight. So Chris Boucher, I got rattled like seeing Chris Boucher and thinking about the memories, but Raptors responded.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Closing out our 3 hours together live right here on the early line on this Tuesday. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside, and this is the SportsGrid app, the ultimate sports betting companion app, available for download at both the Apple and the Play Store. You can scan that QR code on your screen in a matter of moments. All of our insight and information available in the palm of your hand, otherwise known as 5-star plays. Those are best bets, and so are these. Before we close things out here on this Tuesday, I got a feeling, just a feeling, I know where Donnie Rightside is going on this Tuesday. So before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it's time for bye, bye, bye. DRS, you heading out to Provo, Utah for a best bet?
This is a tough one tonight, but it's a matchup that's really intriguing. I'm going to go under 135.5. No surprise that you're going to take that with Houston, but BYU does have a very good offense. However, in Big 12 play, look at both of these teams at the free throw line. 14 teams in the Big 12. Houston, 14th at getting to the free throw line. BYU, 13th at getting to the free throw line. If we're taking a look at that three-point range, if the three balls go down for BYU, yes, there's a legitimate chance that this goes over. But also keep in mind, Houston does let you shoot the three-point shot, but number 3 in conference play at defending the three-point line. I'm going to go under today, 135.5 in Provo between Houston and BYU.
I am very conflicted by the over-under total in Omaha, Nebraska tonight between Creighton, number 17 in the country, and Xavier. As John Rothstein shared, Xavier has won 3 straight games. They are averaging close to 85 points per game. But Creighton's a top 10 defense, which has not often been the case under Greg McDermott in his tenure in Omaha, Nebraska. They were under in 7 straight games prior to triple overtime against Seton Hall on Saturday. If the game ended in regulation, it would have stayed well under. I lean under 150 and a hook tonight in Omaha, but Minnesota, a 3.5-point dog at home in the barn against Wisconsin. Give me the Golden Gophers, the best cover team in all of college basketball, getting 3.5. He's Donnie Rightside. I'm Ben Stevens. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern here on SportsGrid.